use them every day and take them for granted. But roads are a vital part of our world, for trade, travel, and communication. But sometimes building a road is not just a question of economics, it's a matter of life or death. One of the most astonishing roads in Europe was all that stood between a nation's survival and crushing defeat. Mount Vesubio towers 8,000 feet above the Venetian plain in northern Italy. Snaking across its sheer cliffs is a network of tunnels, roads, and what seems to be just a narrow and treacherous goat path. This is the 52 Tunnel Road. But how did it come to play a vital role in World War I?
So during wartime, things are obviously very, very fraught. You're under a huge amount of pressure.
Those are the times when engineers have made what might seem impossible, possible. Under attack, at altitude, in a limited time, 9 months it took for them to build this.
And that does tend to push engineers to create things very quickly and think on your feet and get on with stuff that you might not normally when it's peacetime.
It's an amazing achievement. It's an amazing engineering achievement and should be recognized as such.
It wasn't until 1915 that Italy finally chose sides and entered the First World War to fight its rival, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. But its combat wouldn't take place in the muddy trenches. Its battles were in the freezing mountain peaks.
Well, most of the fighting the Italians do during the First World War is in the mountains that border Austria-Hungary. And as a result of this, it's known as the White War. Of course, in many cases, they were actually fighting above the snow line. Now, the logistical challenges that presented and the natural, formidable obstacles that mountains are to the movement of military troops meant that there wasn't actually a lot of gain on either side.
High in the Alps, the Italian and Austrian armies became locked in a battle of attrition. Men struggled to survive in a barren landscape, where freezing temperatures and avalanches took hundreds of lives. In 1916, an Austrian attack captured the peaks on either side of Mount Vesubio, leaving a direct route to Venice exposed. Dr. Manuel Grotto is a former member of Italy's elite mountain troops, the Alpini. He's an expert on this brutal war that was fought above the clouds.
Questa era la montagna che segnava la fine della pianura e l'inizio delle Alpi. E quindi se gli austriaci avessero sfondato il fronte sarebbero dilagati nella pianura veneta e avrebbero conquistato Venezia.
By 1916, having fought to and fro along the Isonzo River, which is effectively in the northeast of Italy, the main battlefield switches to the Trentino front, which is a little bit further west. And the Austrians actually managed to break through there in an expedition known as the Straff Expedition. And it's as a result of this that the mountains on the edge of the Venetian plains suddenly become vitally, strategically important.
From the peaks near Vesubio, the Austrians had the only road to its summit squarely in their sights.
Che ha contrapposto 1 milione di soldati, 600.000 italiani, 400.000 austriaci. E gli austriaci sono avanzati da quella parte e hanno impedito, prendendo quella montagna, di utilizzare questa che era la strada che i soldati italiani usavano per arrivare in prima linea. E questo è il motivo per cui è stata realizzata la strada delle 52 gallerie.
The question facing the Italian commanders was how could they get men and supplies to defend the vital mountain without them being blown to pieces on the way? The only possible answer was to build a new road across the mountain's sheer cliffs.
In times of war, it can often come down to engineers to make the impossible possible. no, it can't be done is not an acceptable answer. And it's by no mistake or by no accident that in the past, huge leaps in technology and engineering have happened in times of conflict. So when it comes down to something like the 52-tunnel road, maybe it's not as well recognized as it should be as the feat of engineering for what it is, considering the conditions under which it was done.
With immense effort, Italian army engineers were able to construct a simple gravel road that zigzagged up one spur of Vesuvio in a series of terrifying hairpin bends. It was only wide enough for a single truck, and drivers faced certain death if they lost control. It still wasn't enough. To get more men and supplies to the summit, they needed to cut another road across Vesuvio's sheer southern cliffs, and even through the mountain itself.
Gli ingegneri si sono divisi i tratti da costruire e sono riusciti tratto per tratto a collegare la strada dalla partenza a 1200 metri fino all'arrivo che è quasi 2000 metri.
The soldiers given the job of building the road were former miners and quarrymen, many of them too old for service in the front line. Their battle would be against the mountain itself. Where the cliff was too steep to cut a ledge, they had no choice but to dig tunnel after tunnel, 52 of them in all.
Yes, they're soldiers in name, but really they're not combat men, and yet this is an active combat zone that was being zeroed in by Austrian artillery, which is why the road had to be built in the first place. But the logistical task that they actually carried out and the danger of actually doing it, the means by which they would actually create this road and these tunnels. I mean, you've only got to walk on it today to see what a hazardous undertaking just moving along it would have been. Forget about actually building it in the first place when there's nothing, literally nothing in front of you. I mean, you have nothing but extraordinary admiration for the men who did it. And were they recognized with bravery medals? I suspect not, yet they probably should have been.
The Italian engineers were in a race against time. Could they finish the road before the next Austrian attack? One crucial piece of equipment gave them a chance: the pneumatic drill, or jackhammer.
Jackhammers, or pneumatic drills, came about in the late 19th century. And when it came to tunneling and road building, it made the whole process so much more efficient. Previously, it was physical labor with chisels and hammering away at the chisels to break away the rock, either to get the rock away or to make holes to drop explosive charges into, to blow your way through. A jackhammer is effectively a hammer and a chisel combined. Using compressed air, you can hammer away really, really quickly at that rock face.
You're working 2,000 feet up in the air on the side of a rocky mountain, and you're creating what ends up to be quite a narrow path, enough for 2 mules to pass on. But it was such an incredibly important part of the war effort, because otherwise the country would have basically been split into half, and it would have caused a major, major issue to the military, that it just had to get done.
And so time was of the essence, and the jackhammer allowed them to do that and to make something that was purely functional, but do it quickly.
The drills were used to bore holes for explosive charges that would blast away slabs of rock.
Nelle gallerie si vedono anche ancora tutti I buchi che le perforatrici hanno realizzato, che venivano poi riempiti di esplosivo, e quindi l'esplosione permetteva la costruzione della galleria.
It took 9 months of relentless struggle to cut the 4-mile-long road through the solid rock of Vesuvio. To save time, it was only made wide enough for 2 pack mules to pass each other. And even on the highest part, no guardrails were installed. Would the 52-tunnel road save lives, or be just too dangerous to use?
The whole road was built in 9 months, at altitude, with limited resources, whilst under attack, and it would have saved thousands of lives.
In 1918, With the 52-tunnel road acting as a vital lifeline, the Italians were at last able to drive the Austrians back and remove the threat to their heartland. When the war ended, this extraordinary road across Mount Vesuvio gradually disappeared as rockfalls blocked its tunnels and pathways. And it's now shut to all but the most determined walkers, despite the huge effort in forging the tunnels at the time. But the men who built it left a memorial to the back-breaking efforts that turned the tide of the war.
I think the engineers achieved a huge amount in that very short space of time. So where they've got this beautiful ornamental concrete arch with their motto, it's justifiable.
In latino riportare questo nome. Ex ardus perpetuum nome, che significa che il nome di chi fa delle opere grandi verrà ricordato per sempre.